Hello and welcome to GreenFleet Talks. My name's Kate Armitage and I'm your host for our discussion today. I'm delighted to be joined by Matthew Boswell, Managing Director, and Shane Coomber, Marketing Director at Leasys.
Good morning. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
Morning, Kate.
Thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's the first time we've spoken. So today we're going to be discussing the switch to electric vehicles, and we really do have an expert panel here because I've got two for the price of one, which is great. Matthew, could you tell me a little bit more about Leasys and the work that you're doing with electric mobility?
Yeah, absolutely. Safe to say it's a very busy time at the moment. So Leasys, we are a 50% owned business by Stellantis, which is obviously owns car brands, car manufacturers, and 50% owned by Credit Agricole. We're a multi-mark leasing company. We operate throughout Europe, but I'm the managing director of the UK. More locally, we've been working very closely over recent months with each of the brands, certainly Stellantis brands and beyond, about how we work with the ZEV mandate, how we assist with funding electric vehicles into the marketplace. And then on the flip side of that, we have our customers, and we're working exceedingly closely with them with new CO2 targets, new net reduction targets, making their steps, some at different parts of the journey, some further along, with electrification and looking to really finalize their journey and the plan. So we work towards it, but then others almost tentatively having a look because they've heard of this ZEV mandate, they've heard of what's happening in the marketplace, but being less mature as fleets, they're earlier in their journey. So we're helping them take the first steps along the road to electrification. So I think it's a really exciting market at the moment. There are challenges obviously in the used vehicle market when it comes to battery electric vehicles at this moment in time, which presents further challenges for us as fleet operators. So trying to help everybody, it's quite a detailed journey, and actually it can be quite daunting when first starting out. But I think for customers, when they really get through the first steps and break through the initial barrier, it's extremely exciting. And ultimately, fleets in the UK have a massive opportunity here to change the landscape, not only of fleets and business, but obviously of the environment. So yeah, it's very busy, very exciting.
Yeah, I get it. That of course you're kind of seeing the ZEV mandate from both sides in terms of what it means for fleets, but also what it means for the auto OEM or Stellantis. So very interesting.
Absolutely,
quite a good place to be. So can we just talk about for fleets who have not begun any form of electrification yet? What would you say are the most important considerations for their business case?
Okay, from my point of view, and I'll let Shane speak as well, because Shane's has her own opinions, which is great because we give a balanced view to our customers. Firstly, an open mind, I think, is the most important attribute to have as you look to take the first step. There are lots of considerations, as previously discussed, but those that go into it with an open mind, almost a blank piece of paper, so we can work within the confines of their organization and their infrastructure. Generally what we're finding are getting the best results. So the more flexibility you can offer, the better. And of course, it's not something to be taken lightly. The early steps are the most difficult, and you have to be committed to a long-term journey. But for me, what I would say, they've got to consider range of vehicles, type of usage that the vehicles are going to undertake, where you'll charge, what infrastructure you'll put in place, within the workplace, and obviously then in the wider motorway and infrastructure within the UK. So you've got to have loads of considerations, but going with an open mind that actually there might be elements of your business that need to be reshaped to really enable good, true and quick progress. But once you start that journey, it's very much about a case of committing to it and all working together. And whilst we are the experts that we help people to make the journey, also there's good ideas from everywhere across the market sector. So open mind, open ears, and you'll get the best ideas to help your business, is my opinion.
Great. Shane?
Yeah, okay, I think as Matthew says, it's very much about having an open mind and being flexible. But I think if customers think about in terms of or the fleets think about in terms of what are their requirements, what is the ranges they need to cover, because there's such a wide range and such a scope of electric vehicles. It really has moved on in the last few years, and the ranges are quite varied. They're getting stronger and longer as well. But I think it's what's the use of the vehicle, what's the range needed, what mileage, and you can start understanding how to adapt and what sort of vehicle to choose to support you, to make sure that you can still deliver what you need to do as a fleet. And then I think also funding options, absolutely, for me, another area that you can consider, because there's so many and there's various forms of funding that can support both the fleets themselves, but drivers as well, and then even private individuals. So it's just looking out there and understanding in the marketplace what's there to support you, both in terms of the funding, the charging, and then the use of the vehicle. I think those are probably the three key areas, and we do look to try and develop products as a leasing company to support that. Sorry.
No. Sorry, I was going to say, and you've got loads of experience in this, because 5 years ago, your customer base would have been very different to what it looks like today in terms of that electrification path. So you know what works.
Absolutely, and we've seen the technology evolve as well. Being part of the Stellantis group does give us great visibility and access to the technology, how the vehicles are used, what some of those challenges mean, and how you address them. So we really do try to look at all the different support tools that we can, or mechanisms that we can support our customers with. So sometimes it's quite easy to go to that experienced partner and take advantage of everything that we know and use already.
Yeah, brilliant. You mentioned, Shane, the driver and tools to help the driver. And we think it's so important to take the drivers on this journey in terms of making sure that they're accepting their new vehicle. What can employers do to make sure that it's the best possible experience for drivers who are switching to EV?
I mean, for me, a lot of this just pins around communication. So understanding what all those options are, understanding the support mechanisms, etc., and then coming up with communication for your employees, for the driver, so that you help them transition over that initial doubt that they may have or concerns. So it's thinking about all those different areas of need and or concerns, and then really communicating around them. For me, you can also implement driver training, so that's something can support with as well. And there's a huge amount of access to different relevant types of training, forums, trade events, etc., where you can really help and support your drivers from that point of view. And then I think it's about explaining the charging, because that seems to be the area that most people have the concerns about, because today you know what you need to do when you fuel a vehicle. It's now, how does that impact me, and what happens, where can I find a charger, how long does it take? It's just, all those different myths, is making sure you communicate around it.
Oh gosh, I completely agree. Matthew?
Yeah, I agree with Shane. I think from a driver perspective, understanding your vehicle, from a fleet manager, fleet operator perspective as well, the safety of the driver is absolutely key. And I know Shane touched on training there, but once you've chosen the vehicle and you've got over the hurdles, by the time the vehicle arrives, you've almost overcome the hurdles of range anxiety. And then it's driver training, not only how to physically charge your vehicle up. It comes from the handover all the way through, but battery electric vehicles behave very, very differently to a diesel or a petrol or to traditional ICE vehicle. And actually, when people get into one for the first time, my experience is they seem shocked by the difference in the way that the vehicle behaves. From an employer perspective, we've got to make sure that drivers are absolutely safe. And we when we operate our business, we're always talking about safety of drivers, and safe onward journey. And it's those two things. And I think as you make the transition, they become almost more front and center than they have been previously. But yeah, lots of considerations, as Shane says, about getting the driver over the hurdles. But once you get there, we've got to make sure they're safe.
And this is it, because many people, myself included, would say, well, I'll never go back because the driving experience is so much more pleasant. It's a smoother drive, a quieter drive, and you've got instant torque.
Yeah.
But you're right, when you first get into that vehicle, they're actually the things that can cause problems if you've got someone who's not experienced with handling a battery electric vehicle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about the car, and we've talked about we've touched on the funding. Do you get involved in advising on infrastructure for charging? Where do your fleets charge their cars, and what needs to be taken into account?
Okay, so we do have a partnership with Octopus Electrical. That help us with the infrastructure and the rolling out of charging points. For a company looking to install charging points, lots of considerations: space for vehicles, who can use, how you book, fire regulations, how far away from the building are they, which is something can often be overlooked. Entry exit points from those charging stations. There's so many things to consider: payment, benefit in kind. There's so many things to consider when somebody's looking to install within the workplace. And we honestly, whilst we have expertise and we help, we also rely on a strong partner who really understands it to the next degree. And we will take people on site to assess where's safe, where you could do it, how it would look, what it would feel like from a health and safety perspective, but also from an experience from a driver perspective. I don't know if you have anything to add, Shane.
No, I think, as you say, Matthew, and we have chosen a partner to try and help us support and, make sure that we've got that expertise within our bow and that we can support our customers by giving them access to that expertise. But in addition to that, we've also partnering with All-Star as well, and we've been looking at things like fuel cards, but we're mindful now that you're going to have fleets that are going to be transitioning, so we're trying to support with a fuel card that's got the flexibility of an EV card as well, so that you've got everything all in one arena as well. But it's just trying to make that journey as seamless as possibly can, and we will use partners to support us in making sure that we give that best journey that we can.
And Shane, I mean, that really does highlight the fact that no two fleets are the same, and businesses have different needs. So you're right. All-Star versus Octopus Electroverse, for example, is a great example of that, because ultimately how a business chooses to implement the rollout of EVs can be very different.
Yeah,
very much so.
Okay, let's one final question. What help and support is out there for organisations looking to electrify their fleet or to take on an electric company car?
Should I take that one, Matthew?
Yeah, go for it.
So for me, I think it was a bit what you were saying earlier, Kate, is obviously in the last 5 years, we've seen so much change, but with that, we've seen the expertise grow and the support grow. And I think, you've got the likes of ourselves as funders that have tried to build that overall encompassed offer, and we've got all the expertise and support from that point of view. You've got so many industry associations. I'm thinking, like, for example, the British Vehicle Rental and Leasing Association. Huge amounts of work have been done in terms of how do we support the charging infrastructure, the used car market values, etc. So there's a huge amount of support from industry associations like that as well. And then just in terms of the actual products themselves, so as I said, we partnered with a number of different providers that are there to support in terms of the charging, in terms of the funding, in terms of the support needed around the training, the health and safety, etc., etc. So for me, there's a massive amount of support now, and it's just about grasping it and taking that opportunity and moving forward with it.
Great. Thank you very much, Shane. Any final words, Matthew?
Not particularly from me. As you said, every fleet's different, and Everyone has different requirements. I think what's great in the world today, the fleet industry today, is, as Shane said, you've got all the industry bodies willing to help. The fleet press is exceptional. We have webcams, webinars such as this that you can go to. But also, fleet managers are willing to talk to each other and share best practices. And I think you can learn just as much from your counterparts within other organizations as you can from industry bodies and other areas. But there's a myriad of opportunity there to go and learn about it. Our door is always open. We are always happy to walk in and help anybody and consult with them to make the journey. I think the important thing now is that more people start making the journey. And when you do, everyone's willing to help.
Well, Matthew, I just hope it's a big doorway, because there's going to be a lot of people coming your way. Shane and Matthew, it has been a pleasure talking to you this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks so much for your time.
And thank you to Leasys for joining GreenFleet Talks. Tune in to GF365 again soon.